In this video I will be creating another provisioning package that installs software using Windows Configuration Designer, and this time we'll be installing Microsoft Teams, Telegram and WinRAR. And also I will show you how I solved the problems that I got when deploying Telegram and WinRAR. And also I will be disabling the privacy experience menu that we get when we log in for the first time with our user account. And I will leave the URL for this page in the description down below. And I will start with Microsoft Teams because it's the easiest one and doesn't have any issues that we need to solve. So for that I will use this link right here. And as you can see, it brings us to the Microsoft documentation page, bulk install Teams using Microsoft Installer. And we are using this bulk installer because Microsoft Teams is a type of software that installs under the user account. And that means that each user that is using the computer needs to have his own copy of Microsoft Teams. And in most cases, software deployment tools uses system account to install the software. And that means that if we would use the normal executable to install Microsoft Teams, it would install under the system account and no other normal user on the computer would be able to see or use Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft created this alternative installer to make the deployment of Teams easier for us. And this installer doesn't install Teams, but it prepares the computer for Teams installation during user logon. So after you install this installer on a computer, every user that will log in on that computer will trigger Microsoft Teams installation during logon, and I will demonstrate it when we'll be testing our provisioning packages. And Telegram, the other software package that we will be installing, is also same type of software that installs under a user account. But they don't provide an alternative installer, so we will need to solve that issue ourselves. And now let's continue by downloading the bulk installer. So for that I will scroll down a bit. And as you can see here, we have a table, and I will be using the commercial 64-bit one. And now we can go to the Windows Configuration Designer and start creating our package by going to File, New Project. I will name it Software Package. Click Next, Next. Here I will select all Windows Desktop editions and click Next and finish. Now let's expand the runtime settings. Let's expand provisioning commands. And for Microsoft Teams, we'll use primary context. So let's expand that. Let's select command, and now we need to create our command for the installation. So I will name it install Teams and click add. Now let's click on the command. Here we need to select a file. For that I will click on browse. Then I will go to my downloads folder and select Microsoft Teams installation package. For the command line, I will go back to my GitHub page. And I have the command right here that we can use for the silent Microsoft Teams installation. And also we can disable the privacy experience here. So I will click on the command and I will type the name disable privacy menu and click add. Click on the command, and in this case we will need to enter only the command line. So for that I will go back to the GitHub page and I will copy the command that I have here. And basically what it does, it creates a registry key that disables this screen right here, so that we don't need to select everything and click next multiple times. And so I will paste it here. And that's all that we need to do for Microsoft Teams and the privacy experience menu. And now let's go back to the GitHub page. And here is where the more complicated stuff begins, because like I said, Telegram and WinRAR has some issues that we need to solve. For example, Telegram is same type of software like Microsoft Teams that installs under the user account, but they don't have an alternative installer to help us deploy the software. And WinRAR has another issue, but it's a small one, and I will also show the issue and how to solve it. So let's continue by downloading the software executables, and I will use the links that I have here. And as you can see, they bring us to the normal download pages of the software. So I will download Telegram and I will download WinRAR. Now let's go back to the GitHub once more. We will be also using this tool called psexec. And it is a tool that allows us to do multiple things. For example, it allows us to execute commands on remote computers, but the thing that we care about is running software under the system account. And that's what we need for solving the problems on WinRAR side. So to download the software, I will click on this link right here, and it brings us to another Microsoft page. And here we have download PS tools. It's a collection of tools, but we'll need only psexec from there. So I will click on that. And once again, let's go back to the GitHub page. And the last thing that we need is this run ps1 script. And as you can see, it's a PowerShell script that I made, and we will use it to deploy WinRAR and Telegram. And it has two parts. One is for deploying WinRAR, and second one is to deploy Telegram. So if you want just one of the software, you can just remove the one that you don't need. So if you don't need WinRAR, you can remove this, or if you don't need Telegram, you can remove this part. Also, the second part that you need to know about is the executable names right here. They need to match the executable names that you have, because both of them carry the version number. So the version numbers will change in the future. So if you have newer files, make sure to change the executable names in the script. And we are using a PowerShell script just because, like I mentioned before, both WinRAR and Telegram has few issues that we need to solve. And I will try to explain as best as I can what the script does. For example, this part, the first part right here, is for installing the WinRAR, but the weird part about it that I'm using psexec to launch the WinRAR installation using a system account, because the fix that I have for it only works when we install the software under the system account. And provisioning packages can be installed under a few accounts. One is the system account, and that's when we use our provisioning packages in the screen right here. It's called the out-of-the-box experience. And other one is it can run under your user when you install the package from your desktop or USB drive. So I want to ensure that WinRAR is always installed under the system account. And I want to demonstrate the issue for you. So I will install WinRAR by hand on a virtual machine, but I will use psexec for that. So let's go to the downloads folder where we have our PS tools downloaded, and I will use 7-zip to extract the contents of the file. And the only file that we need from here is this psexec one. So I will move it to my downloads folder and then delete the other two files that I have here. And now I have only the psexec executable. And I will take the psexec executable and WinRAR installation files, and I will copy it. And then I will paste them into my virtual machine that I have here. I will create a new folder and move the files there. And now I will open my command line as administrator. And then I will change the directory to the folder where I have my files. And as you can see, we see our files right here. So to make a small demonstration on how psexec works, basically we need to enter the psexec executable name, and then -i for interactive and -s for system account. Basically, I'm telling that I want to create a new window that is run under the system account. And then we need to enter the program that we want to run as a system user. So in my case, I can enter CMD. So I'm opening another CMD window, but this window will be under the system account. Yeah. So now if I type who am I, it is saying that I'm anti-authority system. Let's go back to the folder where I have my installation files. And now let's install WinRAR. So I will enter the executable name and then /s for the silent installation. And it seems that it installed instantly. Let's check our control panel and uninstalled programs. And as you can see, we have WinRAR right here. So it installed under the system account just fine, and it would also install under my account just fine. But the problem with it, that when you install WinRAR normally and you right click on some files, or let's make a new folder, and we would want to convert this folder into an archive, we would have another menu option right here to create a RAR file or a zip file. But in this case, we don't have it. And we don't have it because we need to run WinRAR once after the installation for it to appear. So for example, if I go and let's say select it from the software list that I have here and run it once, it will give us the pop-up right here. And now we can even close it. And after closing it, if I right click on the folder, you see we have a WinRAR menu appeared here. So now we can create an archive, add a new folder.rar or comparison email. So the only and the main issue that we have when installing WinRAR using Configuration Designer is that this menu doesn't appear. And for it to appear, we need to launch WinRAR one time. So let's go back to the script. So like I mentioned before, this part right here is for installing WinRAR using a system account using psexec. And the second part here is for launching the WinRAR once per user account, because we need to launch WinRAR on every single user account on the computer. And we will launch it during the logon process. And this part right here is quite complicated and quite hard for me to explain with my poor English skills. But here we are using two functionalities of Windows. One is active setup, and active setup allows us to run a command on each user once during logon and before loading the desktop. And other functionality is that we are using run once. As you can see, we are using active setup registry to create another registry that's called run once. But we can create active setup registry in the local machine settings, in the local machine part of the registry, and we are creating run once in the current user part of the registry. And we are doing that because we could run WinRAR with active setup, but we don't want to mess around with active setup too much, because the more stuff that we do inside of the active setup, the longer it takes for desktop to appear. And if we launch WinRAR during active setup, then the desktop would not appear until somebody somehow closes the window. So instead, we're creating a registry because that's an inexpensive action to do. And we're creating run once registry in the current user, and run once launches after the desktop is loaded. So like I said, it's a bit complicated. And as you can see, we are creating this registry right here. And basically what it does is just launching the WinRAR executable. And we can actually test it by copying the script from here to here. I will copy it and I will go back to my virtual machine. And this time I will come here and enter a PowerShell session, and I will paste in the code. Now we can go to regedit And if we go to local machine, software, Microsoft and active setup, installed components, we have a new entry here that's called WinRAR run once. And this command will be run on each user. Doesn't matter if that user doesn't exist yet. If we create a new user, it would still run this action for that user once. And we can test it now by closing everything. And then I will sign out. And then I will sign in again. So now active setup is creating a registry for run once. And run once launches after the desktop is launched. So we have our WinRAR pop-up right here. And this is how we will solve the issue for this menu right here, by creating a registry that will launch WinRAR. And that's not ideal because we still need to deal with this window, but it's the best solution that I found. So that's it for the WinRAR. And in the future, I will be making videos about PSExec and active setup and run once registries. So if you're interested in that, you can wait a bit, and I'm pretty sure that I will make videos about it and try to explain it better than I did now. So that's basically it for WinRAR. We install WinRAR and we create the registries that will launch WinRAR once on each user. Now for our Telegram application, like I said, this application is the same as Teams, and I have it installed here. If I right click it and go to open file location, and as you can see, the files for Telegram is in my user account. Basically, that means that I can install this application without having administrator privileges. So it's nice for the user, but it's horrible for administrators when we need to deploy the software, and even more horrible when we need to remove the software from multiple devices. But there are ways to go around it. So with Telegram, the thing that we do is we create a directory in our program data. We create deployment files and a Telegram folder. And after that, we copy the executable into that folder. And after that, we are doing the same that we did with WinRAR. So we are creating an active setup registry key that is creating a run once registry key, but this time instead of launching the application, it launches the installation of Telegram. And this is quite complicated, but this is the best option how to deal with software that is installing under the user accounts. And if you're having any questions, you can post them in the comments down below. So for now, let's download the script by clicking this button right here, download raw file, and let's go back to our downloads folder, and now we have everything that we need to deploy our software. So let's go back to the configuration designer, and this time instead of the primary context, we will use device context, because here we can have multiple files and a single installation script. So first, let's go to command files. Let's click browse and then go to downloads folder. And here I will select the script, click add. Now let's browse again. Go back to the downloads folder, select WinRAR, click add, click browse, downloads folder, then the Telegram setup file, click add, browse, and downloads folder, and the last thing that we need is the PSExec file, and click add. Now to run the PowerShell script, let's click on the command line, let's go back to the GitHub page, And here I have this snippet right here. So I will copy it, go back to the configuration designer, and I will paste in the snippet here. And that's basically it. Now we can export our package by clicking on export. Here for the owner, I will select IT admin, click next, 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 and build. And let's click on the output folder and copy our provisioning package into one of my virtual machines that I have here. And basically now we can test the package that we created. So for that I will double click on the package, click yes, and yes added. And also we can go to our registry, go to local machine, software, and then Microsoft Active Setup, installed components. And as you can see, we have now two entries. One is WinRAR run once, that will run WinRAR after installation, and other one is install Telegram. And basically what it does is install our Telegram under the user account that is logging in at that moment to the computer. And if we go to see dash program data, we have our deployment files, Telegram, and here we have the installation file that we'll be using when installing Telegram. And we're doing like this because we'll leave this installation file right here so that every user that is logging in to this computer will use the installation file that we have in our program data. And as you can see, now we can also check our control panel and see what programs we have installed. We have WinRAR, and also we have Teams machine-wide installer, but we still don't have Teams, the actual Teams software. So we did with Telegram basically the same, well, more or less the same as Teams is doing with its MSI file. It is, and it doesn't install Teams, but it's preparing the installation during the logon process. So now we have the wide installer and WinRAR. As you can see, we don't have the WinRAR menu right here, but if I sign out of this user, and if I sign back in, now let's wait a second. Yeah, now we have all these pop-ups like this one for Microsoft Teams, because Microsoft Teams also installed during our logon process, and WinRAR is launching to fix the issue that we had here. Now we have WinRAR, and also Telegram is also installed. And like I said, everything that happened now happened only once, maybe except for the Teams, because if I remember correctly, it launches every time. Let's test it. Yeah, so WinRAR shouldn't open on this user account no longer. And also we can check our control panel, the install program. Yeah, like you see here we have our Teams, but we no longer have the WinRAR window, because both active setup runs once and that run once registry also runs once. But active setup always stays in the registry, and run once registry deletes itself after running. And this time, as you can see, we have this Teams machine-wide installer, but also Microsoft Teams appeared here, a separate software package. And if we would delete this wide installer, we would still need to deal with Microsoft Teams itself. And that's it when we want to launch our provisioning package from desktop under our account. Now let's modify our provisioning package to work from the out-of-the-box experience. For that, I will create a user account by going to Accounts, Users. I will create an admin account, click Add, and for the password, I will enter something very secret. And then I want to make this user an administrator. And also we want to skip out of the box experience. For that, I will go to Ubi desktop and hide Ubi. And from not configured, I will select it true. So now let's export the package once more. Wait for it to build. Click on the output folder. And this time I will move this provisioning package to my USB drive. Go back to my WinRAR workstation, and I have another virtual machine here. I will make the screen a little bit bigger, and then I will connect my USB drive to the virtual machine. And it should start automatically. And the only difference here is that the active setup registry keys are created before the user logon, or I think even before. No, maybe the user account is already created, but it is they are created before user logon, and that means that we will not need to relog for everything to happen. The setup for the installation is already prepared. So when I will log in for the first time, and I forgot my super secret password, it seems. Oh, no, it's fine. So in the background, active setup is now creating the run1 registries, and after the desktop is loaded, it should run. Okay, it seems that we are inside our user account, and now WinRAR is launching. So let's check if we have the menu. We do have the menu. As we can see, Telegram has been installed and Teams has also installed. So we didn't need to relog because the registry setup happened before this user logged into the computer. And that's it for this video. If you want me to make more software installation packages, write in the comments down below on what software you want me to install. Also, I will be making future videos about PSExec and how to use it and why it's useful for administrators that are deploying software, and also videos about active setup registry keys and run once registry keys. So like and subscribe if you want to see more, and see you in the next one.